So that solved the problem of being hit head on, but I have a new problem. The tires are getting caught in the snow and it's sucking me down the slope towards the concrete pylon of a bridge at 60-ish miles an hour. A huge flash of light, a surge of energy, and the car shifts direction. And I go across the old highway and shears 6 trees off. The steering wheel punctures the driver's seat, and I'm hanging upside down from the steering wheel that went through the seat I was just sitting in.
If you have ever looked around at your life and thought, this can't be it, you are in the right place. This is Flying Upstream, the podcast for people who refuse to live on autopilot. I'm your host, Kristyn Medeiros. Each week, I sit down with people who questioned the rules, challenged the expectations, and chose a different path. Not because it was easy, but because it was honest. We talk about the moments that broke them open, the decisions that scared them, and the lives they built when they stopped doing what they were told and started listening to themselves. If you are done following the crowd and ready to trust your own way forward, stay with me. Let's fly upstream. Welcome back, free spirits. Today's conversation is about success, depression, near-death experiences, the soul, and what happens when you reach every goal society tells you to chase and still feel empty. Kris Land was a technologist his entire life. He founded 12 companies, took one public. The others were acquired or merged. By the outside world standards, he absolutely won. But at 17, after selling his first company and making more money than most people that age could imagine, he fell into a deep depression. He had hit every milestone he thought he was supposed to hit, and it broke him. He contemplated suicide. What brought him back was not another business strategy. It was not another goal. It was a set of experiences that began when he was 6 years old. Experiences that shifted his understanding of reality, of the soul, and why we are here. He went on to become a best-selling author, selling over 2,000 books a week at launch. He wrote a successful finance book for young adults. He built a mentorship business, and after 40 years, he finally finished the spiritual book he first started writing at 18. Today, we're talking about awakening, purpose, emotion, connection, and what it really means to live differently. Kris, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
I love this. Okay, I'm so excited to dive in. So you won the game early, and I'm using the word won kind of loosely here. But at 17, you sold a company and you made serious money. What did that moment feel like when you realized you had achieved what most people spend a lifetime chasing?
Well, at the time, elation, excitement, holy cow, all kinds of great feeling. 3 to 4 months later, it kind of set in that I had no idea what was next. And it goes to the old adage of people that win the lottery and destroy their lives. I had a version of that. And, fortunately, I did not go down the path of taking the money and spending it on drugs or alcohol or spending it all in one place or doing those things. But what I did do is went into the depressed state that you discussed and just kind of lost my way. And that's where I got stuck for a little bit.
And was it when the depression hit, was it sudden or did it kind of creep in after the excitement faded?
It was 40 plus years ago. From this perspective now, it seemed to hit pretty quickly, but I'm sure it took different flavors or shades to get to where it was just like total being lost.
Yeah. And I can imagine it was a truly difficult time. And I know that you had also contemplated suicide. What was the internal narrative happening inside your head during that time for you?
Just kind of like I said, lost, not knowing, well, not even understanding that there was something new to do. I'd lost or done all the goals I thought I was supposed to have done. So I didn't have any goal structure. And I think that we as humans are not only taught, but have an innate desire to have goals and things that we want to do and accomplish each day. And I didn't have any of those. And
Right.
so I my first step out of it was to create three goals that I would be able to work on daily, never be able to fully accomplish. And that was kind of the first stepping stone out.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And as you were going through this experience and starting to have these daily goals and kind of work towards something, what helped keep you inspired and motivated and feeling like this was the path forward for you?
Well, I chose the goals intentionally because they represented what I wanted to do at that time and gave me a kind of a guidance to keep remembering. So those three goals were really simple. The first one was to have fun. The second one was to learn. And the third one was to do neither at the harm or impedance of others. So the idea is to be able to enjoy life, have fun, do that kind of stuff on a daily basis. But also, I have a huge curiosity. And so the learning part is, I think, a huge part for all of us. And by making that a goal that I could do each day, it gave me a thing to look forward to, including the fun part, and just kind of build off that. And then, like I said, doing neither the harm and needs of others, I had that as the third part because I wanted to remind myself not to trounce on other people or do things in a rude or a mean way.
I mean, that's amazing to go from a place where you were depressed, thinking about ending it all for you, and to taking these small steps and these small goals, even something kind of broad, like do something that makes you happy today, have fun, like, kind of come back to life a little bit. And especially as you were also in a place where you were experiencing near death experiences. And I'd love to hear a bit about that because this is not something that most people can relate to. And can you share what happened there?
From the ages of 6 up, I had a number of different things happen that we are taught are not normal or not real or imagined, or we ate the wrong food or whatever the thing is around it. The particular near death experience that had a fundamental change or shift in the way I looked at the universe and how things are operating was I had gotten my first car. My parents gave me my first car. It was a Mustang Mach 2 when I was 15 because in North Dakota you could drive younger because we lived out of town and on a ranch. And in the first month, I had six accidents.
Wow.
And they started out extremely tiny. Like the very first accident in North Dakota, it snows, it gets pretty icy and wintry in the winter. And I'm on the street and it's icy and I hit the brakes and the car slides slowly into an RV parked along the street. This is my first accident. I'm freaking out. It's like, holy crap, I just hit a car. So I get out and I go over to the people's door and I knock and I let them know I ran into their RV and they come out and look and they start laughing at me. It's like, there's no scratch on your car. There's no scratch on our car. Why are you bugging us? And that was my first accident. And then each one got a little bit bigger, but nothing major. I mean, just little tiny scratches and things, or the tire bumped something or something like this until the sixth one. The sixth one, I was going on my way to Team Electronics, which is where I was working at the time. And this old lady in a big giant Cadillac runs a stop sign and T bars the car and moves the passenger door almost halfway into the middle of the car
Oh my
and
gosh.
spins me down the street. And neither of us had a scratch on us, but the car was pretty toasted. But for whatever reason, my dad decided to have it fixed. So he sends it to the dealership, which is a few blocks away, and they spend a couple weeks, it was like maybe a month, putting it back together. And the night that I went to pick it up, it was a colder evening. I picked it up after work. I'm driving home. We lived on out of town on a road called Old Highway 10, which is a little two-lane road. It's got relatively sheer, kind of roll off ditches that go down pretty, maybe 20 feet ish. And I'm on my way home and this black pickup truck is coming at me, and he's all over the road. Turns out it was a drunk driver, and he's coming right at me. And I'm a kid, so I'm driving 60, 70 miles an hour when I had no reason to be doing that on this old road in the middle of winter anyway. And this truck is certainly not doing the speed limit. And so he's coming at me. And so I pull the car off to the side of the road just enough that he just barely misses me. So that solved the problem of being hit head on, but I have a new problem. The tires are getting caught in the snow, and it's sucking me down the slope towards the concrete pylon of a bridge at 60-ish miles an hour. Very not good. And then I remember a huge flash of light, a surge of energy, and the car shifts direction. And I go across the old highway and shears 6 trees off. The steering wheel punctures the driver's seat, and I'm hanging upside down from the steering wheel that went through the seat I was just sitting in. The engine was kind of halfway torn out, and I'm 3 feet off the ground in these trees. So I crawl out underneath the car, go up, and go to the side of the road where it shifted. Now we're talking a 90-degree shift at 60 miles an hour, and where the tire shows the change in direction is like a 1-inch little stack of snow, which is not physically possible. So at that point, oh, and by the way, I didn't have a scratch on me, and it took 3 wreckers to pull that car out of those trees. So, and it was not fixable. I did not have a single scratch on me. I mean, we're not talking a scratch, a bruise, or a bump anywhere. So at that point, it's like, okay, I'm meant to be here for something. Might not know what it is today, but I'm definitely here for something. It also firmly put me in the point of there's a lot more going on here than what we're being told. And that what everybody kind of operates with is a fraction of what is actually going on and happening behind the scenes, kind of like the curtain in the Oz. There's a
Right.
lot more going on behind the curtain that we're just not told or explained unless we start paying attention and looking for the indicators and signposts.
Wow. Okay. That's tremendous. I mean, uh, first, just incredible that you had no scratch, right? I would say unbelievable, but I think that you understand there is some reason behind it that you, as you said, you were put here for some other reason, and kind of pulling that thread, if you will. How did that experience shape your understanding of reality, both before your depression had hit and then after?
So going into the depression, I probably didn't give it any thought at all, really. It probably just wasn't in my brain space. After I put together the 3 goals, and then there's a sequence of 3 things that kind of congealed that got me on starting the concepts and what eventually became the Infinity Within. The original name for the book was called The Soul Path. And those 3 things, we've talked a little bit about one of them, and that is, I call them the stools in the leg. The one is that I had a lot of things happen growing up that just are not explainable, including the NDE. In addition, because of my curiosity, I did a lot of studying growing up in different theologies, in many different theologies, going all the way down to Sanskrit and Egyptian stuff, and agnostic and Christian and Buddhism, and I mean, across a huge breadth of different things. And then I got hired by a gentleman at the bank in San Diego. His name was Chris, and he basically told me he's an atheist. And even though I have zero difficulty with people believing anything they want to believe, it didn't sit right for me for him. So I took it upon myself to figure out how to maybe have him take a look at it differently. And so after spending some time on it, I came up with 4 questions that I can ask. And in answering those four questions, it kind of shows whether we have a soul or not. It shows that all the benefit is in believing we have a soul, and all the downside is in believing we don't. And so that created a fundamental shift for Kris. And it also left me with a question. Great. If we have a soul, believe we have a soul, what is it? What is it doing here? Why is it here? What's its purpose? All those kinds of questions around the soul became something that drove me from that point. So if you look at the three stools on the leg, there's all the weird things that happened, the theology study, and then this question about the soul and coming up with an answer that says, yeah, we've got one, or at least all the benefit is in believing we haven't.
So, so walk me through the logic of there's no upside to believing that we do not have a soul, because this is a pretty bold statement. And I think that probably many listeners out there maybe haven't even given this a second thought that, oh, I have a soul, I don't have a soul, like, whatever. What does it matter? Like, who
Absolutely.
cares?
Yeah.
What is the logic behind that?
Well, let me ask you the questions. And then you can answer them, and then you and your listeners can get a feel for it. So the first answer or question starts with a statement, which is, okay, let's start with you saying you don't have a soul, that you're a piece of clay, that you're just this piece in this place, right? So my question to you is, if you're a piece of clay and you believe you're a piece of clay, what happens? Pretty much nothing, right?
Yeah. I mean, you just kind of go through life, you die, and that's it.
Okay. If you're a piece of clay and you believe you have a soul, what happens?
Your body dies and your soul continues on.
No, no, no. You're a piece of clay. You have no soul,
Okay.
but you believe you have a soul. What happens?
Okay. I guess same thing as the first option. You just,
Except that you might stretch yourself.
okay. Explain that a little more.
Well, you might, if you believe you have a soul, even though you don't, you might seek to do things that are more bigger than yourself. You might seek out different connections. You might do things that are more expansive if you believe you have a soul, but you still don't. Okay. Third question. You have a soul, but you believe you don't. What happens?
Well, I guess you just kind of go through life and you don't have a higher purpose, I suppose.
Okay. Fair enough. And the last question. You have a soul, but you believe you have a soul. What happens?
Okay. I would say you believe that you can do great things with your life, or you're here for a reason, perhaps.
Or you expand into what you really are. So, where's the benefit in believing you don't have a soul? And where's the benefit in believing you do have a soul?
You're saying that whether you have it or you don't, both options where you believe you do, you are expanding yourself and essentially living a fuller life, is my interpretation. Is that right?
Bingo.
Yeah.
In the book, The Infinity Within, Gabriel, who's my main character, he's a fictional character. He goes by Gabe. He meets a mentor named Elias. And he meets him in chapter 2 in a coffee shop because I love coffee. And throughout my entire life, I go to coffee shops, restaurants, everything. I'll be sitting there reading my book, minding my own business, and some random person will come up, pull up a chair, sit down, start telling me their life story. They'll go on for a bit. We'll have a talk. We'll have a chat. They'll get up. I'll never see them again. What I found from that is that there are no such things as coincidences. In fact, I use a word that says there are no such things as quinkadinks. And the reason I say that is that after being curious about time after time after time, people coming down, pulling up a chair without even asking me, sitting down and having a whole conversation with me, that when I really took a deep look into those situations, every single one of those times, those people needed to hear something I had to say, and I needed to hear something they had to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there are no coinkydinks. So back to Elias. He sees Elias. Elias is ordering a coffee at the coffee shop. Gabe's sitting at the chair. He's like, yeah, looks like I'm going to meet this person. Person comes up, sits down, and the first question Elias asks is, do you believe you have a soul? And then they talk about it a little bit, and then Gabe says, yeah, but there is no proof we have a soul. I mean, there's nothing that there, how do we know we have a soul? I mean, there's nothing that proves this. And Elias says, yeah, I get that. Do you believe in love? Do you believe love exists? Where's the proof? So if you take that mental state, so put yourself in the place of thinking about love and what makes it real for you, what part of that experience makes it real, and apply that feeling to the soul, what happens?
Well, if you use that as a baseline that, you can't see love, there's no tangible evidence, right? But most people believe it exists, then you can extend that theory, I guess, to the soul, where you can't see it, you can't touch it, but you believe it exists.
Right? And if you take the same feelings you have around the belief in love and apply them to the soul, it creates a fundamental shift, or it can.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting idea.
I love that. And I think you've also said that the soul's purpose is to experience emotion. And curious how you think that would change with the way that we interpret not only good things that happen to us, but pain and suffering.
So that gets into a bigger question. So if we agree for a moment that we all have souls, the next question is, what is it? Well, according to all the different theologies, which have a bunch of different semantics that, as far as I can tell, kind of say the same thing, I'm going to use the Bible because it's the most read book on the planet, and it's an easy thing for people to get their hands on. But all the different theologies say it in a different way, and that is, in the Bible, there's many chapters and verses that say things like, we are the children of God. And Jesus tells his disciples straight out, you will do everything I have done and much more. And there's a chapter and verse that I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact words, but it's something along the lines of, you will inherit all the abilities of your father. Okay. If we take that a little bit more literal, then that means each one of us is basically walking around with all the powers of God. Okay, great. What are we doing here? Well, I took a look and I said, all right, so if we're this being of omnipotent power, what do we do? If I could only come up with three things that a soul or a God does: creates things, meaning universes and constructs and, things,
Mhm.
destroys things, and plays games.
Okay.
Now, that's great. First two are easy to describe, right? Creation, destruction, that's pretty easy to understand. Third one, what makes up a game? Again, I could only come up with three things: there's pieces, there's turns, and there's rules.
Hmm.
Great. So now we have an idea of what a soul might be looking to do. And then we look at games. Well, let's take a sidestep and say, as a human, why do you play games like Monopoly? Why would you play a game?
To have fun, connect with people.
Exactly. Experience. Okay. So we're this omnipotent being and we're looking for the next game. And there's this game called the Planet Earth. Well, what is it? Well, as far as I can tell, it's a fourth dimensional construct, meaning that the primary motivator is time. And when you go to three dimensions below, time doesn't exist. 5 dimensions above, time exists, but it's not the primary motivator. So, our particular construct that we're in right now, the primary motivator, the thing that is the most important, is the existence and process of time. Great. What would a soul find interesting in a fourth dimensional construct? I could only come up with one thing: connect, have fun, basically experience emotion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes
Which
sense.
is getting to answering your question. So I'm at the pearly gates, and there's the set of rules in order to play this game. And I'm this soul looking in, and I'm thinking, okay, let's read the rules. Well, rule one would be that if you're going to go play, you get to forget, I'm sorry, you get to put all your godlike abilities and leave them here. You don't get to take them in. And that makes sense, right? Because if I got into Monopoly with a game with you of Monopoly and took all the dollars and took all the properties, what fun is the game, right?
Right.
Okay. So that kind of works. But if I'm here to experience emotion and my favorite dog runs across the street and gets run over, and I go, yeah, no, 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 and draw on my power and change the event, I'll experience some, but it's going to be pretty low level experience because anything I don't like, I just change, right? Here comes rule number two. Rule number two is I agree to forget that I ever had them.
Mhm.
Okay, but there is an infinite trap loop. Because if I only go with those two rules, I'm trapped in here forever. So then rule three comes up. Rule three is I agree to have turns. And before I enter into the game, I kind of figure out what my turns are going to be, what kinds of things I want to accomplish in each turn, and how many turns I'm probably going to take, like if in a perfect world, like I did each one, and kind of what I want to accomplish and have fun in this game with. Here's where it gets interesting. If a turn is a lifetime and I accomplish what I'm supposed to do, I get to move to my next turn. But if I don't, I get to do it over and over and over again until I figure it out. And then once I do, I get to go to the next turn, the next turn, the next turn, and eventually leave the game. Okay, that construct works. What would the fourth rule be? Well, the fourth rule is when I'm playing, I'm fully invested. The next four rules I'm going to leave for you to read in the book, but those four rules give you the foundation of what I think, at least, is a reasonable explanation of what a soul would be doing here and how it would look. We're in a game, we're here to experience the full dimension of emotion, of existence. We're fully invested in this, and we're moving through turns, lifetimes to accomplish certain things that we put in front of ourselves to play.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fascinating. I've never thought of it that way, but that makes a lot of sense that we actually do have a goal here, which is to complete your turn, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's really fascinating. Kris, I feel like I could talk to you forever, but we are winding down here a bit. And I've got one last question for you. So you've lived the tech founder life, the millionaire at 17 life, the depressed teenager life, and then the spiritual awakening life. If someone listening feels successful on paper, but hollow inside, what would you say to them?
Curiosity is the key. If you're feeling empty, ask why. Start looking into the why. And typically, that emptiness will resound with a couple of different answers. There's some fear going on, there's some doubts going on, or there's a misalignment with where you feel you need to be going. If we are, in fact, godlike beings that have put our abilities aside, then I would argue that we all have the ability to connect at varying degrees with what we truly are by using remembrance. And by asking questions and being curious, that opens up the possibilities of looking into remembering and removing the illusion of what we're told is real versus what's really going on.
Mm.
And the last part of that is there are miracles that are going around every single day for every single one of us. It's whether or not we're open to receiving them, understanding them, and seeing them that allows us to change.
Mm. Those are some wise words. I appreciate that. I completely agree. There are miracles going on every day, and most of us consider a miracle something huge, something life-changing, something completely extraordinary. And it's important to realize that it doesn't always come at this grand scale, that it can be something tiny. It can
It
be
can be just
something.
that person grabbing a chair and sitting down and talking.
Absolutely.
It can be us having this podcast.
Absolutely. And I like that you're talking about this because it's a good reminder to be appreciative of these miracles too. For example, I was at the playground with my kids the other day. This mom comes up and just starts talking and talking. And I'm like, why are you talking to me? Like, I'm really not in the mood to like get to know your life story. And I just want to sit here and sip my chai latte. Really not into this, but she just kept going and kept going. And then I kind of realized, that this is something she needed. She needed someone to talk to. She needed this to happen for her. It was not necessarily benefiting me, but okay. And so I sat there and we talked for, almost an hour about all the things going on in her life. We parted ways, never saw her again, just like your story is amazing. Well, Kris, thank you so much for your honesty and depth today. Conversations like this really invite us to think bigger and feel deeper. And I'm so grateful that you shared your story with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
If today's conversation sparked something in you, take a moment to sit with it. You can find more episodes and resources at flyingupstreampodcast.com. And if this show speaks to you, the best way to support it is to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who is ready to question the path they are on. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and always keep flying upstream.